I wish that bullet would have hit him instead of Takeoff, because he was the worst thing to me is this clown.
It started as a celebration. Music, laughter, energy. One of those nights where nothing feels out of place. But by the time the sun came up, one of the most respected voices in hip-hop was gone. And what's left behind isn't just grief. It's confusion, suspicion, and one statement that changed everything. I wish that bullet would have hit him instead of Takeoff. That wasn't just emotion. That was a moment that forced people to stop, rewind, and start asking questions no one was asking before. Takeoff, real name Kirshnik Kuribal, was never the loudest in the room. He didn't chase attention and he didn't rely on controversy to stay relevant. While others moved for headlines, Takeoff moved for the music. Born in Lawrenceville, Georgia, he came up alongside his uncle Quavo and cousin Offset, forming the group Migos. Together they didn't just create hits, they reshaped the sound of hip-hop. When Versace dropped in 2013,
it was really a beautiful night, you know what I'm saying? We all family, we enjoying.
It introduced a flow that would dominate the next decade. By the time their album Culture reached #1 in 2017, Migos had become more than artists. They were a movement. And within that movement, Takeoff was different. Less visible, more calculated, often described by those in the industry as the most technically skilled of the trio. Just weeks before everything changed, Takeoff and Quavo released Only Built for Infinity Links. It felt like a reset, a new chapter built on focus and chemistry. No one could have predicted it would be the last. On November 1, 2022 in Houston, Texas, the night didn't feel dangerous. It felt normal. A private afterparty was held at 810 Billiards and Bowling, hosted by J. Prince Jr., a name tied to decades of influence in the music industry. Around 40 people were in attendance. Artists, friends, and industry figures. Inside, everything was calm. Conversations flowed, people laughed, and the energy felt controlled. Nothing about the atmosphere suggested what was about to happen. As the night started to wind down, the energy shifted. A dice game began outside.
Your child is a whole different kind of pain, so.
At first, it was harmless, just another late-night moment. But then voices grew louder. Money became involved. Egos followed. In situations like that, it doesn't take much for things to change. An argument broke out. No one expected it to escalate, but it did, and it happened fast. Between 2:34 and 2:40 in the morning, gunshots rang out. Panic spread instantly. People ran in different directions, some ducked for cover, others froze in place. In the middle of that chaos, Takeoff wasn't arguing. He wasn't part of the dice game or the confrontation. He was simply nearby, standing in the wrong place at the worst possible time. When the shots were fired, he was hit multiple times, in the head and torso. By the time anyone could respond, it was already too late. A nearby nurse rushed in to help, but there was nothing that could be done. Takeoff was pronounced dead at the scene at just 28 years old. Houston police quickly confirmed that he was an innocent bystander. He wasn't the target and he wasn't involved in the conflict. That reality raised a question that still lingers. If he wasn't the target, then who was? And how did the situation escalate to that point? As investigators began piecing together what happened, details slowly emerged. Surveillance footage, witness statements, and forensic evidence pointed to a suspect, Patrick Xavier Clark. According to prosecutors, video footage showed him firing into a crowd. Fingerprints, phone data, and other evidence appeared to build a case. But even with an arrest, the questions didn't stop. While law enforcement focused on the case, the internet began forming its own narrative.
They came here. I wish he would have never came with Quavo.
A short video clip surfaced online, showing J. Prince Jr. walking past Takeoff's body in the immediate aftermath. The clip lasted only a few seconds, but its impact was massive. It spread rapidly, viewed millions of times, and sparked intense reactions. People questioned the lack of visible urgency, asking how someone could walk past such a moment without reacting. The Prince family responded, saying the clip was misleading and taken out of context. They explained that it showed only a fraction of what actually happened, and that behind the scenes, there were efforts to help and process the situation. But by then, perception had already taken hold. In moments like these, public opinion often moves faster than facts. Then another detail added fuel to the fire. The legal team representing the accused shooter had connections to the same family that hosted the event. For some, it was simply a professional overlap. For others, it raised deeper questions about influence and relationships behind the scenes. The narrative expanded beyond the shooting itself and into a broader discussion about power and accountability. J. Prince Sr. eventually spoke publicly, not just as a figure in the industry but as someone grieving. He described Takeoff as family and expressed deep sorrow over the loss. But his words also carried another layer. He placed blame on the person he believed initiated the conflict. According to his account, a single decision during the argument triggered a chain reaction. A punch thrown during the dispute escalated the situation, leading to chaos, gunfire, and ultimately Takeoff's death.
I sympathize with that to the fullest because that's what you call unnatural.
It was in that context that he made the statement that would echo across social media. "I wish that bullet would have hit him instead." The remark was raw and emotional, reflecting anger and pain. But it also intensified the conversation around responsibility. Was it simply grief being expressed, or was it an attempt to assign blame in a complex situation? As time passed, the case continued to develop slowly. Court proceedings, witness accounts, and delays in the legal process added layers of uncertainty. The trial, now set for November 2026, is expected to bring more clarity. But even before it begins, the story has already been shaped by multiple perspectives. At its core, this is a story about a moment that spiraled out of control. A night that began as a celebration ended in tragedy, taking the life of someone who wasn't even involved in the conflict. Takeoff's death is not just about what happened in those few seconds. It's about everything surrounding it. The decisions made, the reactions that followed, and the questions that remain unanswered.
I wish he wouldn't have never brought this into Houston because he can't think.
Even now, the full truth feels just out of reach. Was it simply a tragic accident fueled by chaos? Or is there more beneath the surface? That's what continues to keep people watching, questioning, and searching for answers. Takeoff is gone. That part is final. But everything else, the details, the narratives, the interpretations, is still unfolding. And maybe that's what makes this story so difficult. Not just the loss, but the uncertainty that comes with it. Because sometimes, it only takes one moment to change everything. And sometimes that moment leaves behind more questions than answers.